There is a common belief that you need artist-grade brushes to make beautiful watercolor paintings. But is that really true? I've always wanted to test this out, and today I have a perfect opportunity because I have two sets of brushes from the same brand to compare. And I'm putting them to the test right in front of your eyes. Hi, I'm Leila, a professional artist. Welcome to my studio and this channel. Remember to press the subscribe button if you want to bookmark this channel so that you can come back here. And if you want to receive notifications about my next videos, then press the notification bell. In this video, I'll be reviewing this student set of Meeden brushes that was sent to me by the brand, but they are not sponsoring this video and not telling me what to say. I've done a review of the artist grade brush set in the last video, so you can view that too. I will leave all the links and information in the description box. Okay, so it looks like in the set we have 6 round brushes that are ranging from size 1 to size 6. Here they are side by side, so this is a very good difference. And also we have size 2 and size 6 flat brushes. This is a flat brush size 2. We've got size 3 fan brush, and we've got a long bristle flat brush size 2 with a flat handle as well. So obviously this would be for larger washes. Just a little point, if you do decide to get this brush set, don't throw away the packaging, because the packaging is great. And you have one of these little things, you know, kind of like what I have, but in the wooden. This is just foam, but it's also very comfortable if you're drying your brushes, because you might remember that I always say it's not good to dry your brushes upwards like this, stacked in the cup. The best way is to dry them flat or head down. So head down is a bit more complicated, but this is a perfect little setup. So don't throw this away. This is very useful. But now is the most exciting part of the video. Let's compare the two sets of brushes from Meeden, 9-pack artist grade and 10 pieces student grade. I will use 9 different points of comparison so we can really geek out with our brushes today. Comparison point number 9 will be when I will actually complete 2 full little sketches side by side, one using the artist grade and the other using the student grade set. Now, if you've seen my previous video where I reviewed these brushes, I absolutely loved them. I also really love the design of quill brushes with a really wide barrel and with a very fine point. Now, these brushes, on the other hand, I'm also very curious about, because as you have seen over here, they perform well. The points are gorgeous, and the bounce in them possibly just as good as artist quality brushes. So, point number 1, if we look at the price, the student set contains an extra brush, it contains different shaped brushes, but it is less than third of the price of the set. So did we all go and spend money for nothing? Is this the best set? Let's compare. So if we look at the money issue, the student brushes definitely win. Number 2, water control. Now for this test, I have selected 2 brushes that are visually similar in size. Quill brushes are known to be bigger than these brushes if you compare them side by side. So a round brush number 4 and a quill brush number 4, quill brush will always be larger. That's just how they're designed, and it is across all the brands. So here I have number 6 Meeden student grade round brush, number 4 Meeden artist grade quill brush. So let's compare how well they do when it comes to holding and dispersing water. So I fully loaded the brush. Nothing special, just like you normally would load your brush. Now I can feel it running out of paint. I have to press a little bit harder on it to get the last bits out. Now you can see I have really blended dry. Here comes the artist grade. I've also loaded it up to a very similar level as I did the student grade one. You see, as it starts to run out of paint, I'm pressing a little bit more. That's exactly what I did with the other brush as well, because I also want to see what it looks like when I completely bleed this one dry. As you press more, you squeeze more paint out of this. See, now it's starting to dry out even with me pressing, so the edge is not very straight anymore, and I have to really go sideways, so the lines are very thick. So student grade 8, 9, 10 and a half, and the artist grade 20. So almost double the lineage that we could get. I know most of the time when we paint, we don't really do this sort of a thing, but what it does is that it tells you how much water the brush can hold. And also, this is a good test of how well the paint can be dispersed. Now you see how with these first few lines that we did with the artist grade, they were much thinner and much more controlled, whereas first 3 lines with the student grade, I had to start pressing on it quite seriously straight from the beginning to get the water, as much water out as I could to carry on creating those lines. With the artist grade, I had good control for at least 2 first lines. So you can kind of see how this definitely performs better than the student grade in this test. But how relevant is it for you? And if you're creating a painting with a whole bunch of lines, wouldn't you just be able to dip this brush in the water a couple of times in between to carry on with the line? Well, let's have a look at other tests, because they're just going to be getting more and more exciting. Okay, test number 3, line variation. This is the one where you really need to pay attention. If you are one of those people that enjoys painting florals or decorative art, folk art, then this would be very important. So again, I'm using size 6 and size 4. So these strokes are very similar. The only thing is I think the point, the fine point of the student grade is just a little bit less pointy. Yeah, you can see the difference here. But you do have to remember that there are other brushes, smaller brushes, which probably, let's try the smaller brush. So this is a size 1. Yes, you can get a smaller, thinner line with size 1, but it means you're going to have to swap your brushes around. So you can't keep painting with one brush and then for a small line carry on with this. You'd have to grab another brush, whereas with this one you can carry on and create quite a bit of work, whether it is wide lines or thin lines with this one brush. Now let's do some more testing. By the way, if you'd like to see more videos, go over to my Patreon page, where I have hundreds of videos there that are not even available here on YouTube. There are some games that we play now and then. There are suggestions of next tutorials. I also do feedback videos, and you can also communicate with me in a much more direct way if you have any questions about materials, techniques, or anything else. So make sure to go over there, check it out, and remember, by pledging over on Patreon, you are supporting this channel as well. I really look forward to seeing you there. And you can see I'm using green for artist grade and Prussian blue for student grade, so you can definitely tell what is what. Here is another technique when you push the point of the brush upwards and then create a line. And let's try this with the artist grade now. So pushing upwards. You definitely have more control over the artist grade, but the student grade did quite well. Let's try to do a little drop. Now, neither one of these brushes creates a perfect little drop, so both of them require a little bit of additional, fiddling at the end. So this is the test where we start thin, then thicken the line, and then end thin again. Now let's try side sweeping. Not everyone uses it with round brushes, but sometimes I do, especially if I'm on the go and I have only one brush with me. On this little test, I actually like the way the student brush performed a little bit better because the bristles have a little bit more resistance. I felt like I had more control with this technique with the student grade. Now let's try full side sweep. Sometimes I call it dry brushing sweep as well. Okay, so you see here, it was much harder to create that because there was just so much moisture in here. It just sucks everything up. What I'll try is removing some of the paint and then going for it. There we go. Now I've reloaded my brushes to full capacity and I'm going to try and do little dots. It's a very good test to see how much control your brush gives you when it's fully loaded. And I already know that this artist grade set is absolutely amazing at water control. It's really easy to create various sized dots. Now let's try the student grade. I can still do quite well, as you can see, but I will tell you that it's much easier to do it here. You can actually see that I even did them a bit quicker with the artist grade than I did with the student grade. Now, number 4, lifting off power. So all I need to do here is apply paint, then wash my brush, dry it up really well with a tissue to the point where it loses its shape, and then try reabsorbing. This is not a watercolor paper, so this would do a really bad job for this technique, which means it's a harder job for our brushes. And now the same thing with the student brush. Very, very similar results. Actually, to make sure that this is a very fair test, I've got a little scrap of good quality watercolor paper. This is Honey paper, student grade. Artist grade. Again, we get very, very similar results. I sort of feel that the student grade probably, if I cared, no, it still does it. Yeah, so I'd say they're even on this test. How about if we wanted to get a smaller detail out? Yeah, again, very similar results. So this is where they're both quite even. Let's move on to the test number 5. This number 5 is very interesting because it is shape retention test. So this brush is really, really wet. And if I bend it and release it, it snaps back into its shape. Now, if I dry it really, really well, you can see how dry it is now. Yeah, it does it really, really well. Now, in the previous video, I actually thought that these were actual real squirrel brushes, but they are nylon brushes, so they are man-made, vegan-friendly brushes. I did put a little comment there to let you guys know. And I think the fact that it is a nylon brush, man-made squirrel mimicking. See, that's what it does. Now the real squirrel would just kind of stay like that. Now let's have a look at the student grade. Now you see, if this is all fully loaded. If I do this, I actually have to put in quite a bit of strength to even get it to that shape. It's very stiff. So those of you that love painting with hard brushes, this can be something you'd really love. Now let's have a look what it's like when it's dry. Yeah, so see, it's so dry, it's losing its shape pretty much here. Let's see the bounce test. Yeah, so they're both quite good at getting their shape back together. How these two brushes would perform on a long distance with wear and tear and stuff, I don't know, because this is the only thing that, you know, I'm sort of giving you my opinion of what I see and what it feels like. I have no idea, so that would be quite interesting as well, but you know, this is something that would take months, if sometimes not years, to figure out. Okay, now test number 6, and I think this is something that we would also want to use proper watercolor paper for, to really see how they shine. Test number 6 is layering test. Some brushes are absolutely wonderful for it, while others tend to remove previous layers and scrape the paper. So here is a layer number 1 with both brushes. You can actually hear the stiffness of this brush, can't you, on the paper? Now I'm going to dry them with a hair dryer and then apply another layer. Okay, so what can we see here? Now, it's the same color. It's sort of like a deep red that I've used here, called Pyrrole Red Deep. The color on its own is kind of more closer to this color. So you can see that the student grade did mix the color in. I, on purpose, did not go very light-handed with both brushes. So you can really see how, you can even see that merger of the blue into the red. Student grade brush is much more tougher on paper, which means it is a little bit tougher on the previous layer of paint. Now they both were dried in the same way with the hair dryer until they were perfectly dry. I just want to try another layer with maybe even a lighter color just to see how it will go this time. The brush is clean. It looks a little bit strange because it does have that blue coloring on them, on the bristle. Yeah, there we go. You see, it's diluting it again. You can probably go really light-handed. I'm kind of trying to do it sort of a beginner style painting. Now let's have a look at the artist grade. Okay, so also a little bit here, you know, it's sort of a letting a little bit of pigment, moving a bit of pigment, but you can see still it's done a much better job. Now, normally when you're doing layering, you want to not just dry with a hair dryer, you want to leave it for, you know, quite a bit longer to dry. And then you want to go really, really soft-handed. You don't want to be rubbing like I did, you know, you kind of want to like sort of do this. But this is a test. This is the test of the worst case scenario. This is the test of these brushes in the hands of the beginner who is trying to follow a tutorial for the first time. You can really see the difference between the colors. You can see how much cleaner the colors are here and how much messier they are here. I find things like that actually really, really interesting. So here we go. So number 6, I would say that artist grade wins. Now this is another exciting test. Double dipping. It really talks quite well about what these brushes, how versatile they are, the double dipping. So I'm going to fully load my brush with one color and then dip the tip of it into the color that I've been using before. Now look at that. That looks like a dragon. It's just missing little wings. And the big head. I won't do the head here because I want to keep this as a test. Oh, I like to get carried away with things, you can see, guys. Oh, hard to restrain when you're doing creative, fun things like testing out brushes. And now student grade. Shall we add the wings too? To this little dragon? Or legs, or whatever it is. Let's give this one a legs. Let's have a closer look. Now, you know that stiffness that was really betraying us when we were doing this layering test? That's the stiffness that's giving us more control and more of that color definition, that split of color here. versus here. The brush started off they both started off really fine, very similar, and then as it went through, the artist grade brush mixed the colors in a little bit more. The student grade brush went in and kept them quite clean, and it does have to do with the stiffness of this bristle. So what do you guys think? I love doing those kind of tests. So you can see if you are choosing a brush for calligraphy, perhaps maybe something like this, if you like doing that double color, would give you a much stronger definition. But I still like the point on this brush as well. But this wasn't the test about the point. The test number 3 was about the point and versatility of movement. This test is about how well it mixes or separates color. So if you are going for more natural things, then probably this would work for you. But I'm going to give this one to the student grade because that separation is gorgeous, in my opinion. That's why I'm doing the test. I'm scoring them, but in your mind, you can score them how you want to. Test number 8. Now, test number 8 is, after doing all of those tests, it's more of an overview of the shape, the heaviness of the brushes, and so on, just so that you guys get a better feel for them. Now, if we look at the bristle, right, so both of these brushes are cleanly washed, so there's no paint on them, either one of them. But you can see how the student grade brush has taken on the color of the staining pigments, which can make it a little bit confusing and can make the brush look a little bit old and tired, even when it's not. On the other hand, I think this is why they already come in with these blue points, blue tips, just to show you that this is what's going to happen. I also really like the design. You know how they've got the blue tips and then they've got blue tips here. So it kind of makes it really beautiful. And you can sort of imagine if you're buying this as a present, maybe for someone who is a school age or something like this, opening up the pack and seeing these amazingly colored brushes. That is definitely fun. So the coolness of the look is a plus for the student grade. On the other hand, as an artist, when I'm painting, I don't want to be confused by what I see on my brush. I'll give you a demonstration. If I'm mixing whatever this color here, right? It's hard to tell exactly what's on the brush because the bristle here is quite dark. So when I'm painting, I am really paying attention to this color here. When I've got a brush that's like this, and I'm doing that, and I look at the brush, and to me it looks like I'm going to have really dark color, but when I start painting, it looks different. So it can be confusing, especially if you are one of those people that doesn't sort of do paint by numbers, but goes by instinct and by feel and intuition. This brush will constantly be changing the color, because you see how when I was using the blue, the tips were blue, then I used red. See, now I've got red patch here. So I'm always looking at this and I think, oh, this brush needs a wash, because if I'm going to go into yellow or white or anything like that, this will be like, leaching out other colors, when it wouldn't, because that is just staining on the actual bristle. So here you have again a dilemma: fun look versus the muddy look of the actual bristle taking you astray. It would really depend on who you are and how you're using this for. As a present for someone who is younger or who is just beginning, it would be so much fun when they open the packet up and it all looks colorful and blue and so beautiful and clean. I love how these are also blue as well. But when you're painting, you can run into trouble. Now, another thing to consider for this number 8 point is that when we are comparing brush and brush, yes, that's what we get, but we are comparing two different sets. So now the artist grade brushes are all the same. The only difference is the size. With student grade brushes, you also get flat brushes, which can provide you with a very interesting shape as well, and possibility of creating marks. Like, for example, if you're working on a brick building, this is the brush I would pull out versus, for example, a brush with a just a thin little point. You also have brushes, because you know that test number 2, I think it was, the amount of water. If you're doing a wash on a large piece of paper, for example, you would have to reach out for a larger brush, and this is exactly why they've included this thick flat brush here. I think the student grade set, even though if we compare it brush by brush, I think it is a little bit weaker from what I've done. I haven't finished testing it, but the actual set was put together in a very smart way, because we have a big variety, and for things that these brushes would individually lack, you have the variety to kind of a step in and help you out. It means when you're painting, you're going to have to switch brushes more often than you would with these brushes. Like these brushes, if I did a painting this size, I probably could paint everything with just size 5 or size 4 without having to swap the brush, which is absolutely beautiful if you're going, for example, just pack one brush with you and you're good to go. Here, I definitely would not be able to paint everything with, say, size 5 or size 4 or whatever. I would definitely need to swap brushes. So which one is better for you? You can think about it. Now I want to do the last and the most important test number 9. And that's painting the 2 separate paintings. I'll take a very similar subject matter so that I can use both sets equally. I will also try not to use things like masking fluid and other things that can aid with certain effects, because here I really want the brushes to shine. And as always, Portia is being art police and control checking every move I make. The sketches I will post on Patreon, so if you're one of the patrons, make sure to go and check those out if you'd like to recreate any of these sketches. Okay, with Portia sleeping by my side, I'm going to start with the artist grade brushes. So first dampen the paper, and then I have here pre-mixed a lavender color. Anyway, you want to soften the edge, feel free to spray. Always remember to move your paper around, because that can help you create really cool effects with watercolor. Now let's dry the brush and create a couple of clouds by reabsorbing. Apply denser color if you need to enhance some of the areas of the sky. Now, because there is ultramarine blue in the mix, it's a highly granulating color, and when you use a lot of water with it, it creates beautiful sedimented look. Now a little bit of buff titanium in the mix with the lavender. And a little bit of rutile yellow for a little bit of that sunshine in the distance. Tiny little bit of quinacridone red mixed with buff titanium, and softly blend it out with a semi-dry brush. And now again a reabsorption test for a pathway. Now you see how some of these things are merging, but that's absolutely fine, because it creates that really magical sort of a cute feel, exactly what we're trying to create here. So this was a size 5 brush. Now I'm going to use a size 4. It's the same mix, just a little bit darker with blue being more predominant. A really soft glaze over the house itself. Keeping the color a little bit irregular can help with that sort of old house look. Now let's give it a red door. Now for the roof and some other darker bits and pieces, I'm using a mix of ultramarine blue and quinacridone burnt orange. Now this is an amazing test for a brush. It's a large brush, but I can get away with creating thin little lines. For the really fine little branches, I'm going to really dilute the paint and use the smallest brush. I really like to do those things with rigger brushes, but because this video is all about testing the two sets, I will try and create everything with these brushes. Just going to prep the windows. Now I do want most of our attention to be focused on the little house, but I do want to just pick out a few little rocks. And now little details. On my brush I have a mix of quinacridone burnt orange, ultramarine blue and a little bit of black to really intensify the shadows. Now to tie this up, I'm going to use yellow throughout certain areas where the sun hits the composition. A few final little things like little flowers, and I mixed a little bit of gouache with this to make the colors a little bit more opaque. A few little birds. And the first painting is ready. These are professional artist grade brushes. Okay, so I mainly used 3 of these brushes, number 1, number 4 and number 5, to create all of this. It's still a little bit damp, so the paper is not very smooth. I'll leave that out to dry and then show you at the end as well, but it was easy to work with them. The paint was flowing and I could rely on them to create any kind of texture or brush strokes that I wanted. Now the real test is how does this stand against the student grade brushes. So I'm going to attempt a different but a similar composition with a cute little house, and then we can compare them side by side. Again, the only thing that I'm going to add to the paper is pencil sketch. No tape, no nothing. This is just brushes and what they can do for us. As you can tell, both of those images are just a fantasy based and inspired by all sorts of pictures that I have opened in front of me. Okay, so now that the sketch is ready, I'm going to go for the largest brush in the set, which is that thick, flat brush number 2. And I'm going to create a damp sort of a layer on the paper. Again, this is just water. And I can tell you straight away it is much harder to dampen the paper. Well, it's still doable, of course, I'm doing it here. But it's much more difficult to do it with this brush. Because it's sort of floppy, but also very, very strong, so you can even hear it. It's scraping but not depositing water on the paper as readily as the professional grade. Student grade round brush number 6. And first I'm going to paint the radiating light. This is transparent pyrrole orange. And next Hansa yellow deep. Now you see, because this paint is from Daniel Smith, it doesn't spread as crazily as the core transparent pyrrole orange did. And now cadmium yellow, which is also a core color, so it's gonna move. And now I'm going to use Prussian blue for quite a bit of the sky. Oh, this is all dried now. Oh, you see, now I'm getting into trouble because I want the paint to disperse, but these brushes are so precise that it's making it much harder. Which means that maybe I can use this brush to... There we go. Maybe even a little bit of the round brush. Actually, I'm going to mix in a little bit of indigo blue into this. Don't do this to me. Okay. You see, this round brush is really good for smaller areas, but Even here it seems to be, this is the largest one in the set. It seems to be just a little too small for what I'm trying to do here. So this is just a little bit of indigo to create, you know, that darker feeling, like darker in the day. But you see how good it is at dry brushing? I can have these really dry brushed sort of edges because I'm not using any tape. And it's really easy to create those with this brush, which is great for this painting because that's exactly what I want to achieve, you know, that sort of a brushed look on the edges. It looks like Lighthouse got wings. But it's not meant to have wings, so I need to keep working. Okay, so now you see it's a little bit sort of, those brushes are very precise. So, okay, no, this is way too precise too. I'll try this one. Yeah, I think this is a good blending brush in this set. Yeah, this brush is good for blending, but it's really bad for any kind of, you know, if you want any precision. Okay, so now again, I'm going for another brush, the round brush. I'm just going to and reabsorb a little bit of that blue. So all of this paint at the moment, guys, here, it's wet, so I can do this. Okay, so now while all of that is drying, I'm going to use indigo together with a little bit of yellow to create sort of the green color that you might see in the darkness. Actually, I might use this brush and create that sort of a grassy look. I guess that's the beauty and the plus of having so many different types of brushes in your set. Okay, now this area I can work on while all of that is still drying. So you see I'm leaving a little line there because the greenery is still quite wet. Although in some areas we probably can have a little bit of a run-in. Can be quite nice too. Now a little bit of that orange that I've used there for the light. That same mix that I've used here for the brown, but now I've got a little bit more of the indigo. Okay, so now on my brush I have a mix of indigo and black, Mars black, and I'm using the size 1 brush, and this is on the dry. Okay, now it's size number 3 round brush, and I'm using the same color but just in a much more diluted way. These brushes are perfect for dry brushing, look at that. These brushes also have amazing points to them, really. Okay, now that it's dry, I'm just gonna go in with a little bit more detail. Okay, now because this is all dry, I'm just going to mix a little bit of that sort of a greenish but dark kind of a color and create like a little shadow or a tree here. You can really hear these brushes. These are perfect ASMR brushes. Okay, now I'm just looking at this and I think this is a little bit too light, so I want to darken it. I'm gonna try. I hope I won't ruin it, but whatever happens, happens. This is an experiment. So I'm gonna use brush size 6. Russian blue and indigo together. Oh yeah, I think that's fine. Same on the other side. I remember that issue with layering that I had with these brushes. It's really getting in the way. So I think what I'm going to do, whenever things like that happen, you always just try and make things even more creative. So I'm just going to create this really dark cloud to really just cover it all up. Okay. It's completely changed the painting. All right, now I'm just going to soften this, and then I'm going to leave this to dry, and then we're going to have a look at both of these paintings and all the other tests, and I'll be able to tell you which paint set I would definitely prefer and for what, because at the moment there are just such beautiful things that I can do with each one. And I can really imagine reaching out for certain ones when I'm doing certain techniques. Okay, I'll tell you all of that in a moment. Just a little bit of orange there. I don't want the sky to be orange, but I want just a little bit of that togetherness of those colors. Orange color and dark clouds creates a very, very uneasy feel. So this is turning into this really funny little story, isn't it? Okay, so here are the two artworks side by side. Paint is the same, paper is the same, even the subject matter is similar, so we had the same amount of detail. And what I was hoping to accomplish after this video is to be able to tell you guys, okay, this one is my favorite set. This is the one that I would definitely go with. But I have trouble to say that because there are certain things that I absolutely loved about the artist quality brushes, and there's something that I really loved about the student grade brushes. When I was painting with artist grade, I could create really easily the flow of one color going into the other. There were no problems at all. Tiny little details, and I could do everything with just one or two brushes. If this would have been the set goal, I probably could have painted this whole thing with just one brush, probably with something like number 4. It would have been sufficient enough for larger washes, but also the point is so perfect, I would be able to do all the details. And now this artwork here, again, I could do everything with these brushes, but I had to swap a lot. So if any of these brushes on their own, there's no way I'd be able to paint the whole thing. And you get all these different things there. But the thing that I found the most difficult to deal with student grade brushes is to create washes. So you see how I had to use this brush, and that's why you still can see little streaks and things like that here in the background. And that's because of this. Now, if you want to create these streaks, that's fine. I did not plan to create those. I wanted this to be as smooth as anywhere else. And I had issues. But creating that sort of a really rough, dry brushing effect was really easy with these brushes. There's one thing that I have noticed, that these brushes actually kind of almost like they commanded a specific techniques that I had to rely on to. And I have noticed that I started to do a lot of drawing with these brushes, because it is so easy to draw with them, to do all the little outlines and things like that. It's just perfect. If you're into, sort of like a book illustration kind of art, you'd absolutely love that effect. If you love ink drawings, but you love using ink with a brush versus, for example, a dip pen, for instance, you would absolutely love it. So these round brushes are just perfect. This is how I did all of this. And to be honest, looking at these two side by side, the rocks and the ground, the way it's breaking off and everything here, and I did not set out to do this in any specific way. this was kind of dictated by the brushes. Here, on the other hand, I could create really, really soft, very flowing sort of a colors where colors go really effortlessly one into the other, which is really interesting because I always thought that was the property of the paper. But obviously, the brushes are the ones that can make paint flow or not flow. So this is very interesting. I absolutely love this experiment. So it's so wonderful. I've done a video where I compared student quality paint versus artist quality paint, and that was really eye-opening as well. I mean, there are so many things that I knew about those things, but when you actually do this yourself, side by side, you really see the difference. And as I said, that the way the paint was spreading, for me, that was really strange, because I'd sort of think, you know, if you've got enough water there, you apply paint, doesn't matter what width, a stick, it would sort of flow really easily. But somehow it's just such a different way that these brushes were holding on to the paint. If you ask me which one of these sets I would give up, I can't tell you, because I really love the artist grade brushes for the flowiness, for how easy it is to work with them on larger scale. I just need to grab a larger sized brush. The washes, the absorbing, everything. Very easy as well. It's almost like the brush leads the way. Here, if I was trying to create these washes, it was like I was trying to almost like force, you know, I had to force the brush to do it. But when it came to doing these little details, I really love this. I really do. So, yeah, you guys, I really did not expect it. You know, I thought there would be very similar ones, just sort of a worse maybe than the other. Let me know in the comments if you thought, or if you've ever done tests like this yourself. I just find it really interesting. My conclusion is I did not expect this. I really love both sets for their own little perfect way of simplifying certain techniques. Like, I would definitely not go for this set if I only specialize in really flowy artworks. These brushes would do this perfectly. You will absolutely struggle with these. Like, you saw how small this is, and I've struggled with it. But at the same time, if you love doing little sort of a squiggles and little drawings and little almost like a book illustration things, or maybe Christmas cards or something like this, then you will really enjoy this set. And as I said, the price for this one is less than a third of this set. Plus you get all these other brushes. I didn't really use these much, but like if you like doing swatches and things like that, these would also be really good. And remember how I was talking about this, the bristle picking up the color? So I washed these brushes with the soap, but yeah, it doesn't wash out. So once you start using them, they will be sort of a gray muddy color. This is just something that you'd need to expect. And remember, don't throw away this, because this is very handy. I hope this tutorial was very helpful for you guys. Those of you who are patrons, please go over to Patreon, because I'll have images of the progress of the both artworks and the preliminary sketch. And thank you very much for those of you guys who are supporting me there. And I absolutely love how we are turning into such an amazing little community over there on Patreon. So I look forward, guys, to see you in the next video soon, which is also going to be really cool. So remember to subscribe if you haven't. And thank you so much for keeping me company while I've been testing out these brushes. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye.